Hello everyone, welcome to another video from Fantasy Football Scout. My name is Az. I am here on my own today. So none of the usual back and forth banter that I normally get with the likes of Sam and Janny and Mark and people. I'm going to try and wing this on my own. I'm not a huge fan of these solo streams. I don't know how Let's Talk Andy does it, for example. Kind of just feels like I'm talking to myself, really. But that's kind of what I've been doing for the last sort of couple of hours, really. I've been talking to myself about different options on the wildcard, looking at Gameweek 31. We've got some news of doubles now, so we know who's going to be doubling in 33. I think it's looking a little bit poor that week. So I think we need to be thinking about whether we want to wildcard and look to bring in some of those players so we can get through it and use the free hit a bit later, or whether you're going to free hit in that week, or maybe you haven't got any chips left at all. So you won't be thinking about that in any way, shape or form. You might be thinking about bench boosts. You know, there's still lots of different strategies for people to kind of consider. But what I'm going to do in this video is just try and talk through kind of what we do know and have a look at some of the kind of key players going forward that you might want to pick on your wildcard. So yeah, let's try and make this an interactive one. Loads of people in the chat already, 110 viewers. Hi to everyone listening on the podcast version as well. A bit later on, we got Fergus Bolton, says hi Az. Jay Payne calling me Billy No Mates. Yep, that sounds about right. The Roxby saying, have some banter with us, pal. Well, I'll try to. You're a little bit delayed, so it's quite hard to have banter when you're kind of listening to me about, 30 seconds or something before after I've actually said it. So we're going to see what that. Catherine says Havertz versus Mount. Choose one. Yeah, we will try and cover that as best we can. Right, let's just go through kind of what we do know. So this is the Fantasy Football Scout ticker. You've got Burnley right at the top with the double game week to come against Manchester City and then Everton, and then another double game week in 33. So the only team at the moment confirmed with two doubles that we know about. But obviously, we know that other teams are going to double at different times. You've got Leicester then. I would say a tricky away fixture at Old Trafford, but you never really know with them. But then it's a really nice run of fixtures for Leicester. So Palace, then the double in 33, really good looking double with Newcastle, Everton. They've got Villa, Tottenham, and then they've finished the season with three brilliant fixtures, really, Everton, Watford and Southampton. So straight away looking at that and thinking of the likes of Barnes, Maddison, potentially Vardy if he comes back. These are the kind of guys that we might be looking to get. And then you've got Arsenal in third. Really nice run of fixtures. See them probably into the top four, I'd say. I think they're the odds-on favourite now to get that. Palace, Brighton, an okay-ish double against Southampton and then against Chelsea. And they see out the season with United, West Ham. And then again, the three really nice fixtures in 36 to 38. Leeds, Newcastle and Everton as well. And we're almost certainly going to see them double with Spurs in either 36 or 37. So it's going to be, two double game weeks for Arsenal, really good run of fixtures, and then the two doubles. So they're going to be a team that we look to invest in quite heavily. And then down the bottom, you've got Villa, right down the bottom of the list. Tricky away match at Wolves, and then Tottenham, and then a blank. And then you've got Leicester. Then you've got three good fixtures, Norwich, Burnley, Palace. And they finish the season with Man City. It's that confirmed blank, which is tough. And then the game they're going to have to be rescheduled is going to be Liverpool as well. So when they do have a double, it's not going to be that pretty. Although it'll be Burnley and Palace and then Liverpool. So could not be okay if it gets dropped into the right game week. As long as it doesn't get dropped into 38 if they play City and Liverpool. Second from bottom, you've got Wolves. They got a good run, but obviously they've got the blank as well. And their rearranged game is Man City. So a really tricky one. They've got Norwich in 37 that looks nice. And some decent fixtures. I still think they're probably a team that you probably want to jump off at this point if you're wildcarding. But if you've got a couple like me, Villa, Newcastle, and then a blank sort of sandwich between that blank. Burnley, sandwich between that blank probably isn't too bad. Obviously, with Chelsea and Liverpool in the final 3 weeks, and then that double with City, it's going to be sort of hard to invest in them. And then Leeds as well. So Leeds have got, again, a good run of Blues. Southampton, Watford to come, but then the blank. And then they've got Man City and Arsenal kind of in those final few game weeks. So it's a funny ticker, this, because you look at the teams down the bottom, you look at Leeds and Wolves, right down the bottom of the ticker, but actually they've got good fixtures around them. So again, it's this question of, do we focus on the single game week players, or do we, really try and tap into this double? And I think Chelsea is a really interesting as well. So Chelsea are slap bang in the middle of the ticker, along with City, too, the other team I want to talk about. They've got a really, really nice fixture run. I mean, Chelsea, have got Brentford, Southampton, Everton, Watford all to play. Man City have got Burnley, Brighton, Watford, Leeds, Newcastle. These are fantastic games, and they're gonna double as well. So you don't want to completely ignore them on your wildcard sides. And people aren't ignoring Chelsea, but I do wonder if maybe they're ignoring Man City a little bit to their peril. So anyway, that's the ticker. What's everyone saying in the chat? Let's skip Bayless, as is the GOAT of the FPL community for that rank. I'm not, unfortunately. FPL mate is slightly ahead of me, which is very annoying. He free hitted this week, so I need to make sure my free hit catches him up. Field FPL, Leicester still in Europe, could be rotation. Yeah, I don't really know what Rodgers is going to do, whether he prioritises that Conference League or whether he goes for it in the Premier League. I mean, it's a couple of good results now for Leicester. I think he's going to want to finish as high up the table as possible. Maddison, I think, is probably more of a worry for me if he does decide to focus on Europa, because I just don't think Maddison has got the ability to play 2 games a week at the moment, whereas Barnes kind of is proving that he can do that. They've got centre backs to come back as well. I wonder if there's going to be a change in shape too. It's going to be really interesting. I think the likes of Amate and my boy Amate, and even like Luke Thomas and stuff. We're going to see Castagna coming in, Pereira, Justin's there. We've got Evans on the bench for Fafana to come back. Loads and loads of players to come in. So yeah, really, really tricky with Leicester. I still think Barnes is the one. And we're going to talk some stats about him versus Maddison as well. Maddison off to a good start, outscored Barnes in the blank, but we'll see kind of that can continue. So moving over to Lego Mane stuff. Lego Mane is absolutely amazing at this. Really nice graphic stuff that he does. Check out the article on Scout as well. You can see this in a bit more detail. But essentially, this is kind of how the fixture landscape is looking at the moment. So 31, obviously we've got this double, if you can even call it that, of Burnley at home to Man City and then at home to Everton. And you've got Everton with 2 away matches against West Ham and Burnley. I mean, the likes of Weghorst is going to be popular, maybe Pope as well. Outside of that, it's really tricky to know who to go for. I sold Anthony Gordon on the last week. I could have kept him for this, but I just wanted to get Barnes in place, sort of going forward, and Everton just so easily beaten in the cup. Again, they just don't look a team that we can massively invest in. If you look ahead to 33 as well, you can see our doubling teams. You've got Man United, Leicester, Arsenal, Newcastle, Southampton, Brighton and Burnley. Now, I really don't think this is a particularly exciting double game week. I mean, you've got Leicester there with Newcastle and Everton, but really you've only got 2 players that you can consider, I think, personally. You've got Maddison and Barnes, that's it. As I mentioned Vardy earlier, I mean, he could be a real kind of differential if he comes back and we get him, but he's so expensive, and you think you've got Salah and Kane, and then you've got your money kind of tied in elsewhere. Do we really want to be risking for that? Can he even play 2 games in such short space time? I don't think he's going to really be a factor for us. And most people are going to be able to get Barnes or Maddison sort of fairly easily. So that's the best double sort of covered. Most people have got Arsenal players, 2 or 3 Arsenal players, so you've got that game covered. Newcastle, Leicester at home, Palace at home, decent, but who'd you get? Ryan Fraser, Willock. You're probably not going to go into the defence. I've got Dubravka, who I'm probably quite happy with, but that's not going to be kind of the be or end all, is it? On a free hit team. Southampton have been in really poor form. They got Arsenal and then Burnley. We've seen Broja sort of come out of the team. Che Adams, Ward-Prowse has been disappointing. There's not too many options there. Maybe a defender, Livramento or someone, but again, not a huge amount. Brighton, you just want to avoid completely. Burnley, really tricky with their rubbish. Weghorst, maybe, if you've got him. Probably one of the best strikers to get between now and the end of the season. They've got West Ham and Southampton. And then you've got United, the best game imaginable, Norwich at home, and then Liverpool away. So that could be the if you're going to free hit, you probably want to go quite hard on United. Maybe get 2 players of those. Maybe get Ronaldo and Fernandes, something like that. Go against the likes of Salah, who's playing United, and Kane. But I mean, Kane's playing Brighton, and we're rubbish. So do you really want to use your free hit to go hard on United? I don't know. To me, it doesn't seem worth a free hit, that double. I'm going to probably have around 8 players anyway, and I'd rather save that free hit for 36 and 37. Because if I show you the next graphic, which is this, so it's a little bit blurry. But essentially the blue squares, and sorry if you listen to the podcast, I'll try and explain this as best I can. There's blue squares between 36 and 37, and what they symbolise is basically there's a free midweek for sort of fixtures to be rearranged. So what we're going to probably see is sort of doubles across both of these weeks, and we have potential for some really nice ones to kind of be dropped in. So Man City, for example, they've got Newcastle in 36, they've got Wolves away to be rescheduled. That's more than likely going to be dropped into 36, giving them a really nice double to target. So if you're not loading up on City players, for the wild card, you don't have to really worry about it. You can just get those in the free hit in 36 if you've still got it left. It's the same with Liverpool as well. So Liverpool in 36 got Spurs at home, and then they've got Villa away. So decent looking double for those teams. Those two teams are so far ahead of everyone else this season that, to me, you could even potentially go without 3 Liverpool, and then go into 36 and make sure you've got sort of Robertson, Trent, and Salah all in place just to kind of really target that. And then if you look at the potential FA Cup postponements, these are going to be more postponements that we potentially see. Well, we're going to see more postponements based on who gets through in the next round of the FA Cup. So Man City, kind of everyone's expecting them to go through, but really tricky game against Liverpool in the Cup. I fancy City in that, but I actually fancy Liverpool for the league. So that'll be interesting. But if City go through, they'll have West Ham to be rearranged. If Liverpool go through, they'll have Southampton to be rearranged. If you look at Chelsea as well, Chelsea are going to be favourites against Palace. They're going to have United to be rearranged. If they go through, Palace are going to have Villa to be rearranged as well. So this is going to be an interesting time, these last 2 game weeks. I think if you've got chips, especially with a free hit, I think you want to be saving it for 36, 37. Now, the bench boost, Mogamat Williams in the chat asked about the bench boost. The bench boost is a really tricky one. I think the bench boost is best used in 33. The tricky thing is, who do you actually get in on the bench boost? And when I show you some of the wildcard teams I've put together, putting together a decent looking bench boost, I'm finding really, really tricky to do. I think the likes of sort of like someone like Ben White in 33 is good. He's kind of only 4.5. I think if you've got a bench like me with like Amate on it, he's probably not even going to be around at that point. I think someone like Dubravka's a good buy, good someone to have on your bench. With those 2 home games in 33. But it's annoying because Wolves obviously don't have a game at all. So players like Aït-Nouri, Hwang, Jimenez, if you've still got him, you're going to have to get rid of those if you're going to be bench boosting. And Villa as well. So if you've got cash, maybe you've kept on to Dean, maybe you've held on to Watkins or Coutinho, all of these players, you're not going to be able to bench boost those at all. And the same with Leeds as well. Leeds haven't got a game. So Rafinha, you're able to get him. So you're going to have to make some changes, I think, if you want to get a decent bench boost out for this. But obviously, if you've got the wild card, these are the teams that you probably want to avoid. You want to avoid Wolves completely. You want to avoid Villa, and you want to avoid Leeds, just so you can make sure you can get a decent looking bench boost out. Okay, let's take a look at some wildcard drafts. What I did was I went on Twitter, went on Scout. I just asked people to post the wildcard drafts that they were thinking of doing ahead of 31, and there's a pretty strong template emerging, which isn't like the community at all, is it? So the community team that I kind of found was something like this. It was Pope in goal with Foster on the bench. It was Trent, Cancelo and Rudiger with White and Amate on the bench. You've got Havertz, Saka, Kulusevski, Barnes and Salah, and then you've got Kane and Weghorst with someone cheap like Gelhardt on the bench, or if you could have a little bit of extra money, you could go up to Cucho, who now is for some reason like one of the most popular wildcard players ever because he's got a couple of goals, but probably won't even be around for too much longer. So this is pretty similar to the kind of team that I put together when I was just thinking about the kind of wildcard that I'd look for. It's interesting that Pope is favoured over Ramsdale now. There's quite a few Schmeichels in there too. Looks like Ramsdale's lost some of his favour. Obviously, he's got this bit of an injury now. Not really sure what's going on with that. And people are trying to tap into the doubles ahead of that. I think if you're not wildcarding, I think most people are going to be on sort of Ramsdale or Sarr. So I think you can roll the dice a little bit and maybe go for one of Pope or Schmeichel. I quite like that idea. Cancelo's come back in. So Cancelo has been sold by a lot of people who haven't saved the wildcard for this this stage. They've had the blank, they've had some tough fixtures. They got the 9 points against Palace, the people who kept him, and they'll be delighted to kind of have him back. But I sold Cancelo a few weeks ago. I'm now wondering if that was a really bad move, considering the run that City have got between now and the end of the season. More is certainly going to have Cancelo back at some point. It's just, how do I do it? How do I move the funds around to make sure I've kind of got him in? I'm going to talk a bit about Laporte in a little bit, but Cancelo really is a sort of a prime target of mine. Rudiger was an interesting one. So Cancelo was the only player, I think I looked at about 20 teams. Cancelo was in every single team that I looked at. The Rudiger-James sort of debate was a bit more split, but I think it was about 70-30 in favour of Rudiger. I guess people just don't want to risk James when he's back from injury. He's broken down pretty quickly. But to me, I think he's worth the risk. I think if he comes back in, sort of, if he's training kind of during the international break and he's in line for starting 31, I think he's the one that you want between now and the end of the season. I think he just comfortably outscores Rudiger, even if he gets less minutes. So yeah, it's James for me. There was a few people who were considering dropping Trent as well, so going for Robertson over Trent. I saw a few people with Matip as well over Trent. Lunacy to me. You can't be losing Trent. I'd be very, very reluctant to drop Robertson as well. He's been doing really well for me. I think Matip is a good option to partner alongside him, but yeah, I think if you're taking Trent out, you're losing it a bit. I mean, he'd been taken out, I think, by about 4 or 5. I mean, obviously it's a small sample size, but I think about 4 people are taking him out. So people obviously considering it. I wonder if they'd actually go for it if he's fit. Midfield. I mean, this is literally the most template midfield you can get. I think everyone sort of covets this midfield quite a lot. I think everyone's kind of moving towards this midfield. There's a few players who are maybe, sort of creeping in. I know, Son owners were rewarded, for example, and they're not featuring in this 5 that I'm about to share. The likes of Gordon, who I had, maybe a few people went for him. But really, people are looking at Salah, Saka. They're in almost every team that I see. Kulusevski, he was in 100% of these wildcard teams. Barnes or Maddison, one of those two. A lot of people bought them in last week, but people are going to be getting those sort of going forward. And then Havertz or Mount for that Chelsea mid spot. So really, really sort of template. It's really hard to know how to differentiate this midfield to try and get ahead. I think you could be looking at Martinelli over Saka potentially, but I still fancy Saka to outscore Martinelli sort of going forward. I think obviously you've got Maddison over Barnes, you've got Mount over Havertz, but really there aren't too many players that I think can really kind of break up this really strong template. We're talking about the likes of Rafinha maybe and Coutinho, but with that blank in 33, it's just not that appealing. And then I look at some of the other sort of teams and players, and Foden I think is someone that can come in. I think City are going to be playing their strongest teams. I was surprised not to see a Man City mid, but it's hard when you haven't got when you've got Kane and Salah taking up kind of so many funds. United is just completely out of it. No Ronaldos, no Fernandezes, no defenders, no De Geas, anything like that. Sort of going forward, so there really does feel like there's a kind of a small pool of players to consider. Even someone like West Ham have just gone completely to pot lately. Bowen's out, Antonio hasn't been scoring. Yarmolenko was doing well, but was out of the team. There's no one that you can really consider from that, unless you go for like Fornals or Ben Rama. But you really can take out one of these 5 for that. I don't know. I think it's going to be really tricky to go against this kind of core 5. And then up front you've got Kane and Weghorst, and it's really hard to argue against either of those. I think you need Kane going forward between now and the end of the season. The form he's showing, I think he's miles ahead of Son now, and obviously Son takes up one of those 5 midfield spots. Or I think he's so strong. You could maybe go Son over Kulusevski, but then you've got to downgrade elsewhere. I just think that's 4.5 million. It's going to be really hard to find. And then you've got Weghorst with all the doubles. And you look around at the striking options. You look at like the likes of Tony, Lacazette. Pukki was featuring quite a few teams. Maybe a bit of a left field shout. For people, you've got Broja, obviously still people still holding on faith that he's going to become an FPL option. No comment from me on that. Che Adams, someone like that, but they're not exactly expiring options. And Cucho coming in is going to be really tricky. So, yeah, that's the kind of template I read out again. It's Pope, Trent, Cancelo, Rudiger, Havertz or Mount, Saka, Kulusevski, Barnes or Maddison, Salah, Kane, Weghorst. And then on your bench, Salah, White, Gelhardt and Amity. That is your template wildcard team, everyone, for this season going forward from 31. So enjoy it. My team's a bit different. I put mine together, but obviously I've got to keep this kind of bench boost in mind. So my team's, it's pretty similar, I'm not going to lie. I'm keeping faith with Ramsdale in goal. I think they've got great fixtures to come and doubles coming up and decent looking doubles as well. I've gone 4 at the back. I've gone James, Trent, Cancelo, Laporte. I think Laporte could be Matip as well. I think you're going to get value out of both of those. Bear in mind, I'm not wildcarding this week. I've used the wildcard, so this is just kind of the team that I'd be looking at getting. In midfield, I'd go for Mount. There's not much in it between Mount and Havertz, as I'm going to talk about in a sec. I purely went for Mount on it because I couldn't afford Havertz with this team. I think Havertz is probably the pick that I'd go for if I could afford either. But Mount, I think, is completely fine. And then, it's Saka, Kulusevski, Barnes, Salah. I just can't find any way to argue against those 4. And then Kane up front. And then, a bench of Foster, Cucho, Broja and White. I mean, that would likely be what I'm describing as my optimal bench boost team. When I do that, I don't know. I'd maybe do it in 33. I think I'd probably have to. Bench boosting 2 Watford players and Broja and White. It's not exactly inspiring, is it? But it's really hard to know. I mean, even if I take Laporte down, for example, to Matip, that saves me 1 million. What do I do with that 1 million? I can't put Cucho up to anyone. I could maybe put Broja up to Weghorst or White to a 5-5, but there isn't exactly a huge amount of, of stuff to do there. Like, it's, unless you make quite significant downgrades elsewhere in the team, it's really hard to know where you're going to invest that extra money. I mean, you could put James down to Rudiger, Laporte down to Matip, Saka down to Martinelli, and that gives you maybe 2 million, 2.5 to strengthen your bench. But then you've got a much weaker first 11, I think, going forward to the end of the season. So, like I've said for a few weeks, I'm just not sure the bench boost is really, it should be a massive factor for us. I think as much as I don't particularly like him, I think Broja with the game in 33 is kind of a decent, the double in 33. Sorry, is a decent option. He's the best of the 6 or under million strikers by a kind of country mile. Cucho's there at 5, but I don't think he's going to keep his place. But who else you get? Gelhardt, he's probably not going to either. And then at 4-5, I'm just looking at Arsenal's kind of last few fixtures, and I'm thinking there probably isn't a better 4-5 option than Ben White. So yeah, it's a bit kind of bleh, isn't it? But that's kind of where I'm sitting with this. But I mean, this team, I would imagine this team does very well until kind of the end of the season. It's not hugely different from the team I put together, but I only wildcarded a few weeks ago. I think the beauty of this is you shed all those Villa and Wolves players that a lot of people might be sort of clinging on to, and the same with Rafinha as well. And you get in the likes of Mount, Cancelo, Laporte, James. You've got these players that you can kind of look towards the end of the season. That's probably going to get some decent points. Nuclear Captain says, like the stream for Az's solo efforts. Yes, please. The problem with these is I just talk so much. My mouth gets so dry. Hopefully listening to me rambling on isn't too bad. No one's complaining too much. So I'll just have a drink and I'll carry on. Nice. Harry Dawson says Schmeichel over Ramsdale. Yeah, I think maybe you can differentiate your team a little bit here. I think I said earlier. I think you've got Ramsdale, you've got Schmeichel, and you've got Pope. If you really believe in the extra doubles, then obviously Schmeichel and Pope are the ones to go for. I just think Ramsdale's playing for a really, really solid Arsenal defence. Burnley and Leicester are still shaky. That goal that Leicester conceded was really annoying, especially when Amity came in for me on the wild card. So yeah, a bit sort of frustrating with that. Yeah, I like them. I mean, this might be where, if you are sort of 100k, 150k, and you're looking for some options to kind of, try and be a bit different. That's where these goalkeepers come in. But again, I'm trying to find players to recommend who I think could be kind of real options for us between now and the end of the season. And I really think we're working with a small pool here. And just to really kind of rub it in, I tried to put together a free hit 33 sort of team, and this was kind of the best I could do. It's Ramsdale in goal with Southampton and Chelsea. And then it's Laporte, Cancelo, Trent. So that's, bearing in mind there's no double game week defenders there. And I'm just looking, if we look again at these doubles in 33, you got United with Norwich and Liverpool, Leicester with Newcastle, Everton, Arsenal with Southampton, Chelsea, Newcastle with Leicester Palace, Southampton with Arsenal, Burnley, Brighton with Tottenham City, and Burnley, West Ham, Southampton. I just can't see any clean sheets for those. I mean, Leicester are probably the most likely, but I just don't know which defender to invest in. Maybe if we've got a Fofana back around then, is he definitely going to play both? I'm just not sure he is. So maybe it's Schmeichel that kind of is the kind of double game week player of choice, but I would still, be favouring Ramsdale, I think, with the saves he makes with that Southampton away match. But yeah, really tricky. And then I've gone for it a bit more with the doublers sort of elsewhere. So Fraser with Leicester Palace, Saka with Southampton Chelsea, Maddison with Newcastle Everton, and Barnes to double up on the Leicester attack. Salah with United. Ronaldo is in there with Norwich and Liverpool, and then Weghorst with West Ham Southampton. So, I'm looking at this and thinking, I've already got kind of 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 4 or 5 of these players in my side already. I've got other doublers who are okay. I'm just not sure that it's worth doing it. And particularly if you're wildcarding, you're going to be wildcarding into Ramsdale, Trent, Cancelo, Saka, Barnes, Salah, Weghorst. You're going to have 7 of these players anyway. So I really think avoiding the free hit this week in 33 is probably the right play to go. Josh Jefferson asked about Castagna. Yeah, I mean, Castagna's good, but there's competition there, isn't there? I mean, is Luke Thomas just not going to play anymore at left back? He's played so many minutes for them over the season. He's a young player, really highly rated by the Leicester fans. I mean, he could go over to the right, but then over the right you've got Justin and you've got Pereira that can both play out there. So I would just avoid the Leicester defenders completely. I just don't think we know who's gonna be playing in this. Harry Dawson asked about Ziyech. I like Ziyech as a punt, but who does he oust? Who's he oust in the wildcard team? If we go back to the community team, I mean, are you gonna pick Ziyech over Havertz or Mount? You might do if all 3 were kind of guaranteed to play, but you've got to bear in mind there's Champions League rotations. Ziyech has had his injuries. I don't know if he's the best option of those 3. He's probably the bottom of the 3 that I'd pick. You could maybe go for the double up, given how good Chelsea's fixtures are. But then who do you get rid of? Saka, Kulusevski, Barnes, and Salah. It's really tricky. I mean, you'd say Barnes, but the doubles, so many doubles to come. I think Barnes is the one to keep. So yeah, I love Ziyech. I would love Ziyech to be an FPL option. He's someone I've had in my team for a couple of weeks last season. He did really well for me. I think he's a top player. I rate him so highly, but I just don't think he's going to be an option for us between now and the end of the season. Fergus Bolton says, this is why I like 33 for the bench boost. The mediocre players with doubles are kind of ideal bench boost players. Yeah, exactly. I think if you've still got the bench boost and the free hit, you avoid the free hit in 33 and you look to get out a bench. It's going to be tricky for me though, because I want to invest in Chelsea and I'm going to have some Wolves players and like Amity. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. It might be that I save that chip to right to the end of the season and just use it in a single game week. But ideally, I'll be avoiding using the free hit for sure. And finally, what was my final thing? Oh yes, I just thought we'd look quickly at 2 decisions because, as I said, I'm finding it so hard to work out exactly what we can do to differentiate our sides. I think the 2 biggest calls here are the Barnes versus Maddison move and the Mount versus Havertz. So I just thought I'd get some data up from Scout just to kind of show this. So this is Barnes and Maddison over their last 6 matches. This is from the Fantasy Football Scout members area, so check it out if you haven't already. Really nice stats in here, so kind of heat maps as well. You can see Barnes getting really close now, really dangerous on the left-hand side to the opponent's penalty area. Maddison's still loving these deep rolls where he takes the ball up, sort of touches all over the pitch, kind of just shows you a bit kind of what he's about. If we take a look at the kind of FPL points, generally speaking, Barnes outscores Maddison. Maddison is a very streaky player. He can go on a run of scoring goals or run of blanks. Barnes is a bit like that as well, but has been a little bit more consistent this season. The minutes per FPL point is actually better for Maddison though. Maddison's played less minutes and comes on, but over this period, Barnes has outscored him. And I think minutes are something that we need to factor in with Maddison. Although his minutes per point is better, it means Maddison's being subbed off early or coming off the bench, which is what we're going to see more, I think, with this injury that he's kind of got. Not much in it in terms of XG over these last 6. 0.2 for both. Assists is favouring Barnes, interestingly enough, 0.2 to 0.1. So, double the expected assist that he's got. Expected goal involvement is Barnes again, 0.4 to 0.2. So the kind of stats point here towards Barnes being the kind of better option. What I did find really interesting was this baseline bonus though. So if you look at Maddison compared to Barnes, because Maddison gets the ball so often, and because he passes it around so much, his baseline bonus is much higher. So if both players score, Maddison is double the chance to get bonus. As well, look at this though, penalty area touches. So this goal threat is one of kind of the key metrics for me in terms of how involved a player is. So you can see it from the heat map here. But if you look at how many, basically Barnes is touching the ball in the penalty area 5.5 times a match on average. Maddison 0.8. So he's getting less than 1 touch in the penalty area a game. And again, if we look at goal attempts, 2.8 from Barnes, 1.8 from Maddison. Goal attempts in the box, Maddison 0.3. So his shots are coming from outside the box. We know that with Maddison, that's what he does. You look at Barnes, goal attempts in the box 2.2. So he's having more goal attempts, and those goal attempts tend to mostly come in the box. Much more dangerous position for him to be scoring. I love Maddison, don't get me wrong, but all of this stuff points to Barnes for me. The one thing that we haven't got to consider though is from Desire as well, which is about set pieces as well. So Barnes does have set piece threat. He has an attempt from a set piece once a match, kind of about the same as Maddison, to be honest. What Maddison has got though is the corners. He takes all the corners for Leicester. I just look at these stats. I look at Maddison's injuries, and I just think long term, it's got to be Barnes. I love you, Maddison, but I wouldn't be surprised if you got another injury between now and the end of the season. Leicester have shown they can kind of cope without it. They're a better team with him in the side, but I just can't see Barnes being switched out. He's so important at the moment to how Leicester play, especially with Vardy out as well. The other two that we can talk about on the player comparison tools is their Mason Mount and Kai Havertz. And look at that. There's just nothing in it between them. The price are different. Havertz is up to 7.9. Mount is 7.5, so it's a little bit more. I can't get Havertz in one move. I would need to take a hit to get him. So there is obviously that to kind of think about. If you look at minutes per FPL point, this is over the last 4 matches, because obviously then after that we're going right the way back. So this is when basically Havertz has been playing kind of out of his skin really. So his XG is obviously higher, 0.6 to 0.3. Minutes per FPL point, Havertz is 10.3 to 12.8. But actually, if we look at some of the other stats, I mean, Mason Mount, double the assist potential. Expected assist, 0.2 to 0.1. And if we look at touches, taking the ball more, he's got a better baseline bonus, 9.5 to 1.5. And that tells me that Havertz, if Chelsea win big, Havertz needs multiple returns to get bonus. I think that's a really low baseline for him, whereas Mount's is much higher. He gets that from things like pass completion, which is really high. Recoveries he gets as well, much more than kind of Havertz does. But penalty area touches, again, is kind of key metric. Double the amount for Havertz compared to Mount. And that's the role that Havertz is kind of occupying for that side. And then again with Mount, you've got the set pieces, just like we talked about before. So it is tricky between them. I think given the threat that Havertz has in that role, I think Havertz is the one that I'd go for. I think Mount, there's more chance of rotation with Mount as well. I think it was interesting that Mount missed out in that Champions League, in that really important Champions League game. Didn't play at all. He's still first choice for Chelsea, but why didn't he play in that match? He played a lot of minutes before, but wasn't saved for that game, in a game that was really, really important to the club. And Havertz has ousted Lukaku. I can't. If Lukaku comes back in, it's not going to be at the expense of Havertz. It's going to be to include them together. Havertz plays. He's their, arguably their best player, kind of at the moment. So I would favour Havertz if you can do it. For me, is it worth the -4 to get Havertz over Mount? That means a downgrade elsewhere. I guess it depends on what that downgrade is. If I can better prepare myself for 33 and going forward, then maybe I do it. But I don't think it's a bad option to go for Mount over Havertz. I just think if I was on a wild card, I would probably pick Havertz instead. I think that's it from me. I hope that has been useful. It's going to be one of those ones where I think we all get quite jealous of people's wildcard teams. But like I keep saying, I didn't feel great about the blanks. I had a really good feeling about that double, which was probably the best game week I've ever had with the last Chelsea double. But I don't feel strongly about the 33 double at all. So unless something dramatically changes, I would be saving that free hit later if you still got it. If you haven't got it, then obviously you don't need to worry, and you can just kind of get in who you want. But I think this is a good week to wildcard, and I think if you get in your maybe a double City defence, or you get a Matip in there to partner alongside some of the others, and you get in the likes of Havertz and players, you're going to be ahead of the curve. You're going to be getting people in that a lot of people want. You don't need to be massively differential in your selections, and like I said, I think it's quite hard to pick out some really key ones that can push you on and that will outscore kind of the more popular picks. So that's it. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this, give the video a like on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. There's a few more videos planned this week. I'll be sort of having a couple of guests. Gianni's going to do a video with me. Tom, Ted are going to come on. We're going to look at the title race, the City and Liverpool options, predictions for that. We're looking at top 4 race. Arsenal, I guess Chelsea are clear, but we'll include them anyway. Spurs, United, and we're looking at the relegation battle as well, see if we can uncover any gems. So maybe there will be some gems uncovered during those videos. I won't be too pessimistic. But thank you all for watching, and see you soon.